Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy President. Excellencies, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and take your seats. Allow me, at the onset, to welcome all our guests from the different parts of this globe, our friends from America, from Europe, from Asia, and of course our brothers and sisters from our continent. Welcome to Kenya. In the words of Ricky Bolton, welcome home. This is an important occasion for us to come together as a nation to reflect on what God has done for us. And as we gather here this morning, and we have done this every year since the National Prayer Breakfast was launched in 2003, to pray for our nation, forge unity, and build bridges across political, religious, and community divides. Our presence today affirms the National Prayer Breakfast's pivotal role as one of Kenya's most unifying platforms for national reflection, grounded in the bipartisan and interfaith commitment of our nation and led by our parliament. The scripture in Nehemiah 2:20 tells us, "The God of heaven will prosper us. Therefore we, his servants, will arise and build." It is on that basis that we have this year's theme. Let me repeat, "The God of heaven will prosper us, and therefore we, his servants, will arise and build." This verse captures the essence and core message of our gathering today. Arise and build is more than a theme. It is a sacred call to action, a renewal of our national covenant rooted in the words of our national anthem when we say, "Let one and all arise with hearts both strong and true." These words are not just a lyrical expression, but a pledge to rise in spirit, in purpose, and in unity. To rise and build is to return to the ideals that shaped our republic so that justice may be our shield and defender, and plenty may be found within our borders. The story of Nehemiah reminds us that every great national renewal begins with a desire to overcome adversity, guided by prayer, faith in God, and bold and decisive actions. Like Nehemiah, who sought and received the king's favor to build Jerusalem's broken walls, we too have received divine permission through the will of the people of Kenya in our election and the favor of history to arise and build our nation, Kenya, into a stronger, fairer, more inclusive, and united country. What made Nehemiah's mission of rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem successful was not just the plan, important as it was. It was the people, men and women, priests and merchants, nobles and laborers, who all took their respective places and stood shoulder to shoulder on the wall, laying brick by brick. As patriotic Kenyans, we must emulate this example. As government, we are committed to the urgent task of rebuilding our society, our economy, our relationships, and uplifting those at the bottom without leaving any Kenyan behind. Strengthening our institutions, healing our politics, and securing lasting peace and understanding among us. And I associate fully with the sermon and the reflection that has been exposed to us by Richie Bolden, our speaker today. And Ricky, let me tell you, you're most welcome home. You are most welcome home. And while you are in Kenya, enjoy every bit of what Kenya has to offer. You are in the midst of brothers and sisters and friends and relatives and compatriots. And when you go back to America, please take our greetings to the great people of your country. And you have spoken to us the word of God in a very special way to build the relationships as we do everything else that we're doing, rebuilding our country. In the midst of the challenges that exist, that we must, as we build our nation in every other aspect, we must also build relationships between ourselves, between us and the people on the other side of the aisle, between us and the generations that are ahead of us and the generations that come after us, between us and our neighbors, between us and the countries of our region in the East Africa, the African continent, and globally. And that is why in this prayer breakfast, we have people from across the world. We have seen people from different parts of the world come and fellowship with us on this occasion as we build a globe that belongs to all of us in a shared world. And from where I sit, there are many things that we can say, but equally, we have many things to thank God for our nation. We have many things to thank God for our nation. I say this without fear of any contradiction. There are many people who had given up on the economy of Kenya. There are many, including very senior people globally, who told me to my face that what will happen when Kenya defaults on its foreign obligations. And I told them, I have great faith in my country. Kenya will not be among the nations that will default. I want to thank the people of this great nation, Kenyans, who wake up early, sleep late, work in our farms, work in our factories, work in offices. Many people who commit their talents, their energy, their expertise to get Kenya moving. Because of them, our economy today is different from what it was a few years ago. Inflation was at 9%, 9.6 to be exact, 3 years ago. Today, inflation in Kenya is at 4.1. It had actually gone down to 2.8. Our exchange rate was at 167. Today, for the last 10 months, our exchange rate has stabilized at 128, 129 shillings to a dollar. Today, our foreign exchange reserves are stable. Yesterday, I had an occasion to look at the numbers with Roslyn, our Principal Secretary for Diaspora. I don't know whether she's here. And speaking to diaspora and what they are doing in supporting our nation. In the last 2 years, people in diaspora have contributed resources to Kenya, going up from $4 billion. Last year, we reached $4.95 billion. In other words, our diaspora has contributed an extra close to $1 billion. And so we can count as a blessing that God has healed our economy. I also want to thank God for what he has done to us, especially in our agricultural sector and food production sector. A few years ago, not too long, we had stunts in our streets because of hunger. I must say, and I must thank God, that God has given us favorable weather. And we want to thank God for the rains in our nation. For the last 2.5 years, we've had favorable weather. Our agriculture is doing well. We have increase in our tea sector. We have a better paying coffee sector. We have reformed our sugar sector. It is doing well. And our tea and our milk dairy sector is equally improving. We thank God for the blessing of having food on our tables, for having our agricultural sector moving in the right direction. Let me also say this. Our children are a heritage given to us by God. And the best gift we can give to our children is to make sure that they have the best education. And it is the reason why I must thank members of parliament who have supported me in making sure that we have resources to make sure that we teach our children. Last year, we spent 650 billion Kenya shillings, almost $5 billion, to get our children. Hired more teachers, spend more money on our higher education, and our education sector is coming out of huge debts. I must say, we have reason to thank God for what God is doing in our country. Let me also say this, that doctors treat, but God heals. And for a very long time, proper medical care was a preserve of the people who can afford and the people who have the means. We have, as a nation, tried for a very long time to have a healthcare infrastructure that supports everybody, that gives every Kenyan a chance. I must thank our doctors. I must thank our nurses, the medical people in the medical space. I must thank members of parliament. I must thank governors who work with us to make sure that the rollout of a healthcare system that gives every Kenyan a fair chance, whether they have a job or they don't. Today, we have testimonies across Kenya of what universal health care, Taifa Care, is doing in our nation. I must say, I am very proud that we have moved the number of Kenyans who today are registered on our universal healthcare space from what it was, about 8 million Kenyans. Today we have 22.5 million Kenyans who are in that space. And the good news is that every day, I mean every single day, approximately 50,000 Kenyans register voluntarily on our universal healthcare portal. And the future is going to ensure that no Kenyan is left behind on such an important subject as the health of the citizens of our country. And it hasn't happened because of one person or a few people. It has taken the collective effort of all of us as a country, as a nation, to get ourselves where we are. And it speaks to what Nehemiah is telling us about rebuilding the wall. It wasn't a Nehemiah project. It was a project of every person. In fact, if you look at what the scriptures say, even as they rebuilt the wall, they were holding on one hand weapons to make sure that they are safe, and on the other hand, they are rebuilding the wall. They were multitasking to make sure that the wall was built. I am asking us, as the people of Kenya, for us to work together. I had a moment of great reflection last week when I went to hand over keys to the first 1,080 homeowners, people we have given a chance because of our housing program, people who live, families who share one toilet, like 5, 6 families in our slums, people who otherwise had no hope of ever owning a home. Today, they live with dignity. And it doesn't stop at the 1,080. Tomorrow, I will be handing over more keys in Kisumu. On Friday, I will be handing more keys in Homa Bay. The week after, I will be handing over more keys in Machakos. And that process is on. We have 150,000 housing units under construction. And it is my belief that we will have more homeowners. We will give dignity to many more Kenyans. And I must say, this has not happened because of a few people. Patriotic Kenyans, Kenyans from all walks of life, have made a contribution. The people who are making their contribution to the housing fund, the engineers, the masons, the carpenters, the electricians, and everybody in between have made their contribution as we rebuild our nation. and lift people from a place of indignity and put them at a place where we can all be brothers. I must thank members of parliament also and county governors. We've worked with them, identifying places where we can do markets, worked with the universities and colleges to identify places where we can do hostels, so that again we can give dignity to our business people and our children in our universities and colleges. We will continue to do this together, and we must be careful to thank God for the blessing of a great country that we have and the strides that we are making together as a people. And even as we rebuild relationships amongst ourselves, with our sons and daughters, with our children, with neighbors, with our neighboring countries, and all round, we must be careful always to thank God for what God has done to us and for us as a nation. Because it is said, if we are not grateful, if we are not thankful for the little, we can never be grateful for more. And therefore, I want to ask us as a nation, as a people, to work together, to do less of finding fault and to do more of building bridges that can make us even a greater nation. I stand here to tell you that I am confident about the future of Kenya. And I have no doubt in my mind that Kenya is truly a blessed nation. And the future of our country, no matter what happens, is going to be greater than our past. And so, ladies and gentlemen, friends, our neighbors from Tanzania, if we have wronged you in any way, forgive us.